Hi everybody, this is Jim with JP Reacts, where you come to see reactions and analysis of what politicians say every day. So you can have better conversations with your friends online and in person. Today, for this video, we're going to be looking at part 4 of the last presidential debate, which I know has probably happened, this is probably coming out after the election, but it is always good to know what politicians plan to do. So let's look at the first part of this video. Okay, so this part of the debate really focused on the economy and specifically healthcare. So right now, with the confirmation of the new Supreme Court justice, there is real danger that the Affordable Care Act, otherwise known as Obamacare, could be deemed not viable by the Supreme Court. So the question was, what would they do if that happens? What is their plan for health care? So let's listen to President Trump and what he had to say. So President Trump talked about repealing the mandate, which basically was that if people didn't have insurance that was required, they would have to pay a fine. So yeah, that was, I'm not entirely sure the timeline on that. If that happened at the tail end of President Obama's term or the beginning of President Trump's, either way, it's not exactly a great thing, because then people that are generally healthy, younger people, will not participate in the health insurance, which raises the cost for everybody, because they too need health insurance once in a while, but also having a sicker population raises premiums overall for health insurance. He talked a lot about also pre-existing conditions. He keeps saying he's going to protect them, but right now with the lawsuit, if the Affordable Care Act goes away, the protections for pre-existing conditions go away. And he hasn't really talked about a plan on how he would re-implement those. So overall, he keeps talking about a plan, but he's never really presented it for these 4 years. And actually, Republicans in general have always tried to repeal. They always talked about repeal and replacing the Affordable Care Act, but they never presented what that replacement would be. So that's really just a continuation of the Republican policies from the past. It's not really specific to President Trump. So let's hear what Vice President Biden has to say about this question about the Affordable Care Act. So Vice President Biden's main focus is on adding a public option, as it's called. Basically, it's a government-run health insurance that is in competition with private plans. It's not on its own, so everybody wouldn't have to go into it. It'd be an option, especially for those people that qualify for Medicaid under the Affordable Care Act, but for whatever reason their state didn't implement it, so they couldn't sign up for health insurance. So this would help fill that hole. He also talked, which is a kind of big deal, having Medicare negotiate for drug prices. That's a big deal, and it would help drive down drug costs. All experts agree. Right now, Medicare is by law not able to negotiate drug prices, which is unfortunate, obviously. So that's what he was talking about around there. And then I want to show one more short part of his answer to a follow-up question about his plan right now for Vice President Biden. So the question was about the charge that it was socialized medicine, which is fairly ridiculous. We already have socialized medicine in this country. The VA is socialized medicine, so is the care for our military. Medicare, it could be considered socialized medicine, so this is not something new. It's a charged term that doesn't really mean anything, basically. So, but his main point was Americans would have choice. They would, the way they do now, public option, private insurance, whatever they wanted. His main thing is that affordable healthcare is a right, not a privilege. And what he means by that is everybody should have the ability to afford healthcare for themselves and their families. It shouldn't just be provided to the lucky few that can afford it. All right. This next part is talking about the COVID relief bill and how it's been stuck in Congress. So let's hear what President Trump has to say about that. President Trump basically blamed the Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, which is unusual because it doesn't really make sense given the facts on the ground. The Democrats have passed the bill back in the summer and have been really pushing to get something in, and Republicans haven't really necessarily been willing to negotiate in good faith on that subject. It's really been, the key sticking point has been helping the states with their local budgets, because they've been hard hit by a lack of revenue with all the lockdowns, a lot of businesses shutting down. So that's been the main sticking point. So I'm not really sure how blaming Nancy Pelosi is an accurate statement, but he did it, so we'll have to go with that. Let's see what Vice President Biden had to say. So he referred to, again, the bill that the Democrats passed in the summer, which I already mentioned, so I'm not going to go through that again. He also referenced his experience with the Recovery Act in 2009, after the Great Recession from President Bush that they handed to the Obama administration in 2009. It's been widely acclaimed that it was the most transparent and well-run major government initiative in a really long time. He actually did a pretty good job of making sure the money got where it went to. There's a website that actually outlines where all the money went. So if you're interested in learning more about his record on that, you can look at that, the recovery website.
Because Nancy Pelosi doesn't want to approve it. I do.
But you're the president.
I do, but I still have to get. Unfortunately, that's one of the reasons I think we're going to take over the House, because of her. Nancy Pelosi doesn't want to approve anything because she'd love to have some victories on a date called November 3rd. Nancy Pelosi does not want to approve it. We are ready, willing, and able to do something. Don't forget, we've already approved 3 plans, and it's gone through, including the Democrats, in all fairness. This one she doesn't want. It's near the election because she thinks it helps her politically. I think it hurts her politically.
All right, Mr.
President Trump basically blamed the Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, which is unusual because it doesn't really make sense given the facts on the ground. The Democrats have passed the bill back in the summer and have been really pushing to get something in, and Republicans haven't really necessarily been willing to negotiate in good faith on that subject. It's really been, the key sticking point has been helping the states with their local budgets, because they've been hard hit by a lack of revenue with all the lockdowns, a lot of businesses shutting down. So that's been the main sticking point. So I'm not really sure how blaming Nancy Pelosi is an accurate statement, but he did it, so we'll have to go with that. Let's see what Vice President Biden had to say.
And they have pushed it. Look, they passed this act all the way back in the beginning of the summer. This is like, it's not new. It's been out there. This HEROES Act has been sitting there. And look at what's happening. When I was in charge of the Recovery Act with $800 billion, I was able to get $145 billion to local communities that have to balance their budgets, and states that have to balance their budgets, so then have to fire firefighters, teachers, first responders, law enforcement officers, so they could keep their cities and counties running. He will not support that. They have not done a thing for them. And Mitch McConnell said, let them go bankrupt. Let them go bankrupt. Come on. What's the matter with these guys?
The bill that was passed.
So he referred to, again, the bill that the Democrats passed in the summer, which I already mentioned, so I'm not going to go through that again. He also referenced his experience with the Recovery Act in 2009, after the Great Recession from President Bush that they handed to the Obama administration in 2009. It's been widely acclaimed that it was the most transparent and well-run major government initiative in a really long time. He actually did a pretty good job of making sure the money got where it went to. There's a website that actually outlines where all the money went. So if you're interested in learning more about his record on that, you can look at that, the recovery website. Okay, so this part of the debate was talking about the minimum wage and raising it to $15 an hour. So first, let's hear what Vice President Biden had to say about that topic.
Because I think one of the things we're going to have to do is we're going to have to bail them out too. We should be bailing them out now, those small businesses. You got 1 in 6 of them going under. They're not going to be able to make it back. They passed a package that allows us to be able to call PPP. Money is supposed to go to help them do everything from organize how they can deal with their businesses being open safely. Schools, how they can make classrooms smaller, how they can hire more teachers, how they can put ventilation systems in. They need the help. The businesses as well as the schools need the help. But these guys will not help them. Is not giving them any of the money.
We are going to.
So he supports raising the minimum wage to $15 an hour. He said that many times. He also referenced giving money to struggling businesses. With COVID and everything happening, a lot of businesses are struggling, and the concern is that they need help too. So Vice President Biden talked a lot about giving them money, direct money. We had some as part of the original COVID relief bill. He would want to add to that and the loan program, and also give direct money to businesses. So let's hear what President Trump had to say with regards to the minimum wage.
We are going to move on to
Excuse me,
immigration,
one thing very
but I
quickly.
want
He
to
said
get
we
your
have to help our
reaction.
small businesses by raising the minimum wage. That's not helping. I think it should be a state option. Alabama is different than New York. New York is different from Vermont. Every state is different. It should be a state option.
you said very
we have
recently-
to help. It's very important. We have to help our small businesses.
You
How
said-
are you helping your small businesses when you're forcing wages? What's going to happen, and what's been proven to happen, is when you do that, these small businesses fire many of their employees.
You said very recently.
So he referenced that different states have different realities. And I totally agree with that. Different states do have different realities. And what's true in Alabama is definitely not true in California, or true in Texas isn't true in Illinois or Wisconsin. Different states need different levels. Where he's mistaken is that you need to have a very baseline level, and different states can adjust around that. The $15 minimum wage helps get people at least out of the poverty line if they work full-time, which is why they set it at $15. He also talked about how if you raise the minimum wage, it's been shown that it causes job losses to small businesses. Every study that you can look up online basically refutes that as totally false. So he basically is just misleading and lying in that sense. So raising the minimum wage, as long as it's done in a way that's responsible, you don't go from where it is now to like $25 an hour, doesn't lead to job losses. The minimum wage has been raised to $15 an hour in some places, and those economies have done just fine. So that's the story on minimum wage from both candidates. Next topic was about immigration, and specifically, there was a report that over 500 children that were separated at the border from their parents, the Trump administration has not been able to locate the parents to reunite them. So let's see what President Trump says is his plan to have that fixed.
Children are brought here by coyotes and lots of bad people, cartels, and they're brought here, and they used to use them to get into our country. We now have as strong a border as we've ever had. We're over 400 miles of brand new wall. You see the numbers, and we let people in, but they have to come in legally, and they come in through
But
merit.
how will you
But let
reunite
me
these
just tell
kids
you,
with their
Let me just
families,
tell you,
Mr.
they
President?
built cages. You know, they used to say, I built the cages, and then they had a picture in a certain newspaper, and it was a picture of these horrible cages, and they said, look at these cages, President Trump built them, and then it was determined they were built in 2014. That was him.
Do you
They
have a
built
plan to
cages.
reunite the kids
Yes,
with
we're
their
working on
families?
it we're trying very hard, but a lot of these kids come out without the parents. They come over through cartels and through coyotes and through gangs.
Vice President.
So he referred to basically a bunch of bad people bringing the kids over. That's not true. They came with their parents. So it's not really worth digging into too much. That's That's been his position since he started running from office, and frankly, it's not it's pretty racist position in general. Yeah, there are some bad actors at the border, but the vast majority of the people coming are not those people. He referenced the wall. Now they built so many miles of it. Most of the miles that he's referencing to are basically just upgrades to existing fence and wall. So that's again a little bit misleading. And that was actually never approved. He just repurposed money that was for the military to pay for the wall. So it's not exactly a good use of our funds that were supposed to go to the military. Generally, he says they're trying, but they don't really have a good plan on how to figure this out so that those kids get reunited. So let's hear what Vice President Biden has to say about this topic.
Let me bring you into this
525
conversation. Quick response and then another question to you.
These 500 plus kids came with parents. They separated them at the border to make it a disincentive to come to begin with. Real tough. We're really strong. And guess what? They cannot, it's not coyotes didn't bring them over. Their parents were with them. They got separated from their parents. And it makes us a laughing stock and violates every notion of who we are as a nation.
Let me ask you a follow-up
Kristen,
question.
they did it. We changed the policy.
Your response
they
to that?
They did it. We changed.
did not
They built the
separate
cages.
the-
Who built the cages, Joe?
Let's talk about what
Who
we're
built the
talking about.
cages,
Let's
Joe?
talk about what we're talking about. What happened? Parents were ripped, their kids were ripped from their arms and separated. And now they cannot find over 500 of sets of those parents, and those kids are alone. Nowhere to go. Nowhere to go. It's criminal.
Stick with what the Vice President said, since it was basically what I said. So that wraps up this video. Hopefully you got a lot out of it. And if you did, please like this video. If you didn't, you thought it was stupid, then you feel free to dislike the video and tell me why in the comments, why you liked it or disliked it. Also, feel free to subscribe so you can see the next video that pops up, either in this series or in the next Politician Reacts. So until I see you again, have a great day.